full movement. One arm, left and right. We always make sure we got full movement. Okay. Ignition on, clear prop.
I feel like I really got to know what it feels like, what it's supposed to do.
Wow.
So that was great.
Wife had got up in a glider and wanted to know if I was going to go, and I said, no, I think I'll go up in an ultralight. That interests me a great deal more. And it was a quicksilver. And then I got a ride in a trike one day over at Quartzsite with a fella, and that was it. That did it. And as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing compares with trike flying. I like the feel or the way of the trike because you've got so much more feeling of the air. You've got a direct connection to the wing, and after all, any airplane we fly, we're flying the wing, regardless of what it is, and I just enjoy it. And then for me, we do a lot of traveling, and the trike is very easy to travel with. I can fold it up, put it on top of my car, put the whole thing behind the motorhome, and away I go.
I was down in Australia flying these, and I just fell in love with them. I went back home to Hawaii where I had my company taking people tandem and hang gliders, and I realized that I could take a wider range of people, longer flights without having to worry about the wind in age groups. A lot of people go through life and everyone's going, oh, I always wanted to try hang gliding, but they don't really want to jump off a cliff. Well, with this, which we call a powered hang glider, opens things up for way more people to come up and give it a try without any experience.
Freedom, challenge, reward, excitement, adrenaline. It's got it all.
Sharing that experience and teaching my wife about it, and she really enjoys the flying part of it too. And she's become a pretty good trike pilot too.
My dad always flew Cessnas, and to me it always felt like a car in the air. And it wasn't until I flew on Kauai, took my very first lesson in a trike, that I realized that a man really could be a bird and fly like a bird and feel like a bird. And every time I'm in this trike, I feel like I'm totally free.
So, you're interested in trikes, are you? Triking adds a terrific dimension to your life. To experience the world from a whole new perspective of endless fun and infinite adventures. Learning to fly trikes is easier and more comfortable now than ever before. As a new trike student, you can begin your in-flight training today with a qualified instructor. Modern trikes have evolved into forgiving and efficient aircraft that compare very favorably with other types of ultralight aircraft. Many of today's trikes are certified aircraft which are tested well beyond normal flying parameters for strength and safe flying characteristics. Trike pilots often fly great distances to visit places others may never experience. Recently, one intrepid triker flew completely around the world, the first time ever that such a light aircraft had succeeded in such a journey. As a triker, you can take wing with friends and family or choose the solitude of solo flight. Either way, Triking gives you the freedom to fly. So, how do you get started? As with any type of aviation, the easiest and safest means to learn is with a qualified instructor. Your instructor can provide proof that he is rated with one of the national organizations as an instructor. A trike instructor should have his trike set up for dual instruction so that the machine can be flown just as well from either seat.
Get a trike instructor who has an honest-to-God trainer. This trike here is set up so it can be flown just as readily from the back seat as the front. I insist that a new student spend a half hour in the back seat. All he does then is just fly the roll of the machine, just learn to fly headings and make some gentle bank turns. But then after a half hour or an hour or whenever the student is comfortable, I'm ready to put him in the front seat. That's when the fun really starts. Now from the back seat, as an instructor, I can steer the fork on the ground. This is very important. I can also obviously fly the wing. I have throttle availability here on the seat rail, and I have the magnetos over here.
These are the 4 functions that are the sign of a good two-seat trainer. Let's take our first discovery flight with a professional trike instructor with a simple out and return flight. First, your instructor will sign you up as a student pilot and explain the basics of the federal air regulations that govern ultralight flight in the U.S. This is our ticket to freedom.
We have a startup sequence. It's kind of designed to guarantee that we never start the trike and it's at full throttle. The way you do that is simply make sure both throttles are closed before you spin the prop. So I'm going to go throttle closed. I actually touch it, although I can see it. Throttle closed, and then mags on, and then key on, and then you look around behind you, and nice strong voice, you say, clear prop, contact. With this particular plane, the propeller doesn't spin until I give it throttle. So we're ready to roll.
We will clear the runway for other traffic, apply full throttle, and use the control bar to push the nose all the way up. Now, we accelerate down the runway until the wing has enough airspeed to lift off. This happens between 20 and 30 miles per hour, depending on the type of trike and the all-up total weight. Once airborne, you will always pull the bar in to guard your airspeed and improve your handling while flying close to the ground. As you climb away from the ground, you may ease off on bar pressure and allow the wing to fly at trim speed. Trim speed is the speed the wing flies if you let go of the bar and have no forward and aft pressures on the control bar. Initially, the instructor controls the trike. Soon, often in the first few minutes of your flight, the instructor will allow you to control the wing under his supervision. All airfields have patterns that are imaginary flight paths around the airfield. These patterns allow all aircraft to be predictable during arrival and departure and while training students within the pattern. A typical ultralight pattern is lower and shorter than the surrounding general aviation pattern. Usually, you take off and turn 90 degrees onto the departure leg. Once away from the airfield pattern, you notice that the wing flies itself with very little pilot input. You can even temporarily let go of the bar if you like. The wing is designed to fly at a trim speed. Depending on the type of trike, this design trim speed can range from 30 to 60 miles per hour. Trim is the natural speed a wing will fly when the pilot is not pushing or pulling on the control bar. Let's use for an example a trike that has a trim speed of about 45 miles per hour, such as the one we're flying now. If we push the bar out to slow down to say 35 miles per hour, we feel pressure on the bar as the wing wants to naturally go back to the trim speed of about 45 miles per hour on its own. If we pull in on the bar to go faster, say 60 miles per hour, again we feel pressure on the bar as the wing wants to naturally slow down to the trim speed of 45 miles per hour. The resistance we are feeling is called pitch pressure. When you feel this pitch pressure, this is the first step to getting the feel of the wing. Pitch pressure is important because it gives the pilot constant feedback about airspeed without need to look at an airspeed indicator.
Get them up in the air and let them become comfortable just being in the air if they've never had any aviation experience. Once they're comfortable just being up in the air and they're relaxed, that's when they can learn, they can comprehend. Then I'll let them go ahead and start steering the wing and getting comfortable with that.
On a two-place trainer, you can quickly get the feel of what it's like to climb up to the wild blue yonder safely under your instructor's supervision. Here, you enter a totally different world, the world of freedom. Coming in for a landing, trike pilots use the standard aircraft approach. Ideally, we will land facing into the wind, but this is not critical because we have wheels and trikes handle crosswinds and even tailwinds with ease. The proper approach is a steep and fast final to a round out that skims the runway as we slow down. The main gear will touch the runway as we slow to landing speed. We then use the last of our airspeed to gently land the nose wheel. After your first discovery flight, you are ready to start your training program in earnest. With about 10 to 15 hours of dual instruction, you can solo in a familiar pattern with a familiar trike in calm conditions. Your instructor will provide a ground school where you learn of and discuss such important aspects of flight instruction as meteorology, theory, airspace, and safety concepts for flying trikes. Many trikes can handle a wide range of cargo weight. Since you attach all the trike weight at the design hang point, staying within the weight limitations is the only weight and balance concern for the triker. Trikes can handle a wide range of wind conditions too. However, most training operations are scheduled during the calm morning and evening hours. During these calm conditions, the wing reacts only to the student's control inputs and not to the more dynamic midday air when solar heating creates thermal currents, wind, and turbulence. The best training takes place when the wind is at 0 to 10 miles per hour with no gusts. And last but not least is a complete pre-flight inspection of the wing, the trike, and the power system.
And I'm going to point out some of the features that I've learned to add on my machines because I fly them so much is, this is a real key one, having the mufflers sterling silver and ceramic coated. And what that does is it stops any corrosion and it looks good, they'll last a lot longer. This aircraft is equipped with a clear polyethylene tank, so you have a visual, plus I have a gas gauge on my instrument panel. This is your 582 water-cooled engine, an integral electric start system, and one of my favorite items, we call it the chicken chopper, but it's a 6-blade prop. And what that does is it gives us some real quiet, slow tip speeds, so because quiet is in. We like quiet. And the wing is 90% double surface, real tight, and has top speed at about 80 knots. With our helmet systems, these are designed for quiet, comfort, and warmth. Wind protection slides down. We've got communication here. Our box system runs here. We have CD player and push to talk with our radios, so we have communication with other aircraft. This instrument panel features knots and digital, gas, fuel consumption, lift and sink indicator, all engine management systems we can run up, and it just has got everything on it you could possibly need for an ultralight.
Ignition on. Clear props.
When all feels right, you give it full throttle. In a trike, your power setting relates directly to your climb and descent rate. The more power you add, the faster you climb. You will climb best, however, at near trim speed. You descend best by reducing power to idle and pulling the nose down to gain airspeed. The angle of attack in a trike relates directly to airspeed and should not be confused with up and down. True, we do climb more efficiently if we push the nose up, and we descend more rapidly if we pull the nose down. But what we are really doing is flying slower and faster. Flying wisdom states that a good approach makes for a good landing. We line up our approach to fly directly down the center line of our runway. We want to fly our final approach with lots of airspeed to be certain not to stall the wing on final and maintain optimum control as we bring the trike down onto the runway for a flare. The wing will slow to trim speed as it glides along the ground. We gently push the nose up to stay off the runway until the rear main gear begins to touch. While the main gear is dragging, we slow even more to float the nose wheel to a soft landing. The perfect landing takes place when, at the same moment that the nose wheel touches the ground, the control bar touches the front strut of the trike. You cannot land a trike any slower than this. Landing is an art you will practice your whole flying career. For an instructor, landing must be a joy, because your instructing career will consist of thousands of landings each year.
Safety, always safety.
Main thing is safety, safety, safety. I think safety comes with kind of a common sense issue.
Safety is your number one thing that we deal with in this sport.
Back of your mind going, well, if it goes quiet, I'm going to go there, I'm going to go there, or I'm going to turn around and go back the other way. Just, that's the way you keep it safe.
If you've got a lot of airspeed, keep it up till you get right on the ground and then bleed it out. If you go too slow, you fall out of the air, and it can happen. You just have to keep that airspeed up until you get right on the ground and then bleed it.
Since the FAA laid out the regulations that govern ultralight flight in the U.S., ultralight pilots have proven that self-regulation works. FAA Part 103 defines the freedoms and restrictions under which trikes operate, defined in a few simple paragraphs. There is no license required to fly a single-seat legal ultralight. No student triker should be without a good understanding of the ultralight rules and regulations that allow us to fly free. Soon we begin to seek new horizons far from the training areas and patterns. This stage of learning requires a better knowledge of weather. Weather is the spice of flight. If every day were blue skies and light winds, flying could lose its mystery. When you achieve flying proficiency in smooth conditions, you begin to fly later in the day and into stronger weather. Evaluating the weather helps you make decisions that are appropriate for the aircraft you fly and your skill level. You will study weather from a global, a regional, and a local viewpoint to forecast what factors will affect your flight. Learning how to evaluate whether to fly is a significant goal for any pilot. Trikers have a wide variety of craft to choose from. There are slow wings and fast wings, single seat or two seat. There are trainers, aero tugs, float planes, a wide variety for different types of flying.
Look at a lot of trikes. There's a lot of good trikes out there. Talk to people that fly them. There's good used gear out there. People get it all the time, but keep your eyes open and get somebody that you consider to be knowledgeable if you're not yourself knowledgeable.
New trikers practice flight technique for skill and accuracy, and the most intensive practice is the low pass. While low on the runway, the new triker develops a soft touch for pitch and power settings and centerline control as well. Trikers practice maneuvers and procedures that may be encountered in emergency situations. Trikes are gliders after all. They perform well with the engine switched off, and they are capable of landing in short and rough fields. A typical practice exercise is to shut the engine off at altitude, glide into a pattern, then fly the pattern to a spot landing. Any pilot should keep this practice in mind while flying away from his airport, and always keep a friendly field within an easy glide. There is never any reason not to have somewhere to land in your trike. If you find yourself in this position, you either fly high over the terrain, you fly around the terrain, or you go back. Your instructor should be willing to offer you training in stalls, steep bank turns, and unusual attitudes. Many trike wings are certified for mellow, forgiving stall characteristics, and they are all nearly impossible to spin. The more airtime you accumulate and the more landings, touch and goes, low passes, and emergency procedures you practice, the better you will handle weather and occurrences. With the experience you build from rigorous flight training, you are ready for complete freedom to fly.
Up in Golden, BC, my wife and I, we did across the Canadian Rockies from Golden up over Lake Louise and into the Banff area. And then the conditions were quite rough above the Canadian Rockies, so I got above the clouds on the way back and flew it back to Golden, and incredible views. Just breathtaking stuff. Stuff you just will never forget the rest of your life. You know, it will be with you forever.
Oh, my most memorable flight? That's a tough one. I've flown the 3,000-foot sea cliffs of Molokai, where there had been a landslide where the rubble fell half a mile and created 15 new acres of land at the shoreline. I've circled down into the center of West Maui Mountains as the waterfalls just kept twirling around me as I descended 2,500 feet. Maybe flying over the Big Island's active volcano and seeing lava flowing into the ocean. These are the things that you can only see from a trike, and these have etched memories in my mind that'll never go away.
So if you want your freedom to fly, Triking can help you realize your dreams. The time is right. The time is now. Start Triking today.